Mummy, please. Mummy, don't kill me. Mummy, I am dying. I will not do it again. Daddy, save me. God, come and save me. Mummy wants to kill me. Mummy, you are choking me. I am suffocating. Little Lillian wailed and wailed on that fateful day. It was exactly 8 a.m. The morning sun peeped through the glass window, casting an orange shadow on the kitchen cabinet. Little Lillian was inside the kitchen mopping the floor. Just like every other day, she had woken up so early to do her morning chores to avoid what she and her sister called a panel beating. That was the kind of beating that Victoria gave them all the time. Victoria placed the roster on the kitchen cabinet. Little Lillian made sure she finished everything in time to meet up with school. Her mother made sure there was no school for her any day she didn't finish her work. Her first chore was washing plates. Then she would sweep their 3-bedroom apartment. She was the one that made pap for her little sister of 3 months old. It was after these ones that she would mop the floor before going to school. All her work wasn't done until Victoria confirmed them. At times she would complain that there's dust on the kitchen floor or oil in the plate. But little Lillian had mastered all the crafts involved. The 8-year-old little Lillian had been inside the room since she came back from school. As she was laying Angel on the bed, she heard her father's voice. With great enthusiasm, she rushed to the parlor. She was about to step into the parlor when her gaze met Victoria's own. Victoria scowled at her fiercely and rolled her eyes. Little Lillian took 2 steps backward and cowered behind the curtain. From there, she watched her parents in the parlor. Her daddy didn't see her. She couldn't call him either unless Victoria would tag her a witch. Victoria had said that little Lillian was the witch that wanted to cause a problem between her and her husband. Evil child, she would always call her. Who was behind that curtain? Victoria asked as if she didn't know who was there. Mom, it is me, little Lillian answered with a shaky voice. Victoria's voice frightened the little girl, like the way girls were, frightened by masquerade's whips. Go inside the room if you don't want to come to the parlor, Victoria yelled angrily. Little Lillian knew what Victoria meant. She would have loved to join them inside the parlor, but that would only bring more beating to her. She waited for her daddy to call her, but when it seemed like her daddy was so engrossed with what he was talking, little Lillian spun around and went inside dejected. In the room, she laid out on the bed facing the ceiling. She had asked her elder sister Mirabelle if there was anything different with the life they were living and that of maids. Her sister told her that the only difference was that those maids were not in their houses. They were not with their parents. Her sister also told her that 99% of those maids were living a better life than them. The only reason they were in a good school was because the school belonged to their mother. If not, they would have enrolled them in one nonsense public school. Little Lillian sprang up and went over to the window, staring at the trees outside. She had finished what she was doing, and her little sister Angel was asleep. If not because of the kind of mother she had, she was supposed to be inside the parlor watching film, but it never happened in their house unless Victoria wasn't around. It was her resting time until Angel woke up from her sleep. Little Lillian was what they called a child, taking care of another child. She was 8, but she would do what some 20-year-old couldn't do. Little Lillian, little Lillian. Victoria yelled from the parlor. Mummy, I am coming, little Lillian answered and rushed to the parlor. The poor girl stood by the couch, her whole body trembling, her eyes downcast. Victoria sat on the other couch, casting a furious look at her. The air of the environment was fierce and thick. Little Lillian knew what was about to befall her. She watched as Victoria laid the baby Angel on the couch and walked towards her. What were you doing inside the room? Victoria yelled. And with a trembling lips, little Lillian said, Mom, I didn't see it on time. It was covered with clothes. The Pampers I kept on the table. Mom, it was on the bed and clothes covered it. Little Lillian cried defensively. So I am lying, right? Mom, you are not lying. Little Lillian shook her head vigorously. You didn't see it on time. Clothes covered them. Is that your only excuse? I have said that you are a witch. You want to kill me, Victoria barked and landed a thunderous slap at little Lillian. Lillian fell on the floor and screamed. Mom, please forgive me. I will not do it again. You will not do it again. I won't even give you a chance to do it again. I will kill you today for disobeying me all the time." With full force, Victoria gave little Lillian another slap that made her bleed from the nose. Without minding the bleeding, she dragged little Lillian inside the room and locked the door. There she used a long whip to flog her. Little Lillian sprawled on the floor, wrangling around the room, screaming, "Mom, please forgive me. Mom, I am sorry. I won't do it again. I won't disobey you again. Mummy, you are choking me. I am suffocating. God save me. Mummy, please don't kill me." The more she pleaded, the more those lashes landed on her body, scraping her skin and entering inside her soul. Larry was at the place that commanded entrance to the compound when he heard the noise from his home. With great speed, he rushed inside the house. He darted through the back door to the sitting room. Angel was the only one there sleeping on the couch. Larry scratched his head and gnashed his teeth. "Not again," he said before disappearing towards the master's bedroom. The anguish cry from little Lillian was piercing Larry's heart. He stood in front of the door knocking and screaming, "Victoria, open that door. I said open the door." When little Lillian heard her daddy's voice, she wailed in a higher pitched voice, "Daddy, come and help me. Mom wanna kill me." Larry pounced on the door severely with his fist yet. Victoria remained inside the room flogging Lillian. Larry tried to break the door, but it was an iron door. Had it been a wooden door, Larry would have used his foot to break it. He kicked and kicked, but the door remained unshakable. "What have I done to myself?" Larry muttered, and tears streamed down his face. He placed his forehead on door, pleading with Victoria to open the door. "Victoria, please stop flogging her. Please open the door." The anguish cry of little Lillian reminded him of the way he had cried on that day, the way he rolled on the hospital floor asking God to take him instead. It was also a reminder that he had failed as a father and a husband, that he had failed to keep all his promises. "Victoria, if anything happens to that girl, you will pay dearly for it. The other day you broke her head, and now—" Larry wiped his palms down his face. He couldn't fathom the whole thing. 2 days ago, little Lillian was carrying Angel, and mistakenly Angel fell down on the floor. That was the reason Victoria flogged little Lillian, until the hard part of the belt broke her head. How heartless could a mother be? How evil could someone be again? Victoria loved referring to people as witch, but she was the true meaning of witches and wizards. Even witches were learning work from her. She was so wicked and mean. She had made his home miserable, and one by one his children were slipping of his fingers in a broad daylight. His first daughter, Mirabelle, had not visited home since she entered secondary school. She had taken her maternal home as her permanent home. The last time he saw her was during their school visiting day. Larry still remembers what Mirabelle said to him on that day. "I'd rather die than coming back to that house to meet Mum again." "Why would you say such a thing against your mum?" Larry barked. With a squeezed face, Marble retorted, "Dad, don't even act as if you don't know what I am talking about. I pity little Lillian. I can't imagine what she must be going through in that house. Our house feels like a hellfire." Larry knew that Mirabelle was right. He knew that their house was hotter than hellfire. Who could have believed that life would treat him that bad? Who could have believed that a day would come when he couldn't protect his children, his own children, his flesh and blood? It was true that the only thing permanent in life was change, but his own was outrageous. Right now he couldn't hear Lillian's voice again. Victoria was also silent. Fear gripped Larry. What if what happened to him many years ago was about to repeat itself again? What would he tell his family? The whole world would mock him. Christiana would despise him wherever she was. Many years ago, when Larry was a young man of 30 years, one day on his way back from church, he met a very beautiful girl called Christiana. Christiana was a member of the lay readers and altar girls. She was a well-known person in the church. Their first encounter was in front of the church, when Larry mistakenly hit Christiana with his bike. Even when Christina assured him that she wasn't injured, Larry insisted that he would take her to the hospital to see a doctor. It was his kind gesture that attracted Christiana to him. After thorough examination, the doctor assured them that nothing was wrong with Christiana. Larry took Christian to a shopping mall and bought many things for her. Christiana thanked him profusely and went home with the packages. Larry was a young man living on the wealth of his parents and siblings. He was a graduate with a good certificate, but he wasn't doing anything. All he wanted was to enjoy life and lazy about from morning till night, to travel from east to west and south to north. He was known as the ladies' man. He clubbed every weekend with different girls. All the beer parlor and hotels in their streets knew him. Whenever he passed by, you would see people chanting his name. Larry the rich boy, the only man who knows how to spend cash. But none of the cash came out from Larry's pocket. He could steal from his parents if they refused to give him money. His parents had talked and got fed up with him. Larry was so stubborn that he never listened to anyone, not even his mother, who he said he loved most. There's no day that passes under the sky that Larry would not bill his parents or his siblings. There was a kind of connection between him and his mother, because he was the last born of the family. So his would always do what he wanted. Severally, his siblings had given him money for business, but Larry squandered it within a short period of time. They begged him to travel out of the country, but Larry refused. He said that he didn't want to go abroad. Abroad that people are searching for, Larry, his mother yelled. Give it to them. I am not searching for it, Larry retorted. Everyone in his family was so exhausted with the kind of reckless life Larry was living. It wasn't the kind of life they trained him to live. He had learnt some of his bad behavior from university, due to the kind of friends he kept. It was during the days of university that Larry started smoking. None of his male siblings were smokers, not even his father. Many times Larry was given suspension during his university days. It was always about cultists or something of such. His siblings blamed his mother for pampering him so much when he was a child. They blamed everything and anything for Larry's nonchalant and bad behavior. All these reckless behaviors stopped the day he met Christian. Being the kind of woman that Christiana was, she changed Larry from a bad boy to a saint. There's a total transformation in Larry's life. A huge and transparent transformation that terrified every member of his home. Christiana wasn't only a good girl, but also a hard-working woman. She was capable of doing anything that would fetch her money once. The thing was a legitimate job. She introduced different types of trades to Larry, like play. Larry began to face his fear in businesses. Christiana introduced him to the selling of Richard cards. It was a very lucrative trade that Larry enjoyed so much. In Larry's words, it was a neat and comfortable business. That was the main reason Larry continued with the business. Christiana was a teacher in a private school. But to make the business more comfortable and enjoyable for Larry, she woke up at cock crew, did whatever she had to do in her house. Then she would go to Larry's shop, mop it before going to her place of work. She made the place more neat and inviting, so that Larry wouldn't have any reason to complain. At times Larry marveled at the kind of energy she had. Her energy was like that of two people at once. Larry's family were so happy that they began to ask Larry to marry her at once. His mother was the happiest one. My daughter, if I die today, do not barb your hair. You have done everything for me in this life, Larry's mother said to Christiana. One evening as they were watching movies inside the parlor, Larry came from the village where people barbed their hairs after the death of a relation. It was a way to show respect and reverence to the dead. It was a kind of saying that if I can lose you, losing my hair means nothing to me. But here Larry's mother told Christiana not to do it because Christiana had given her everything she needed. Larry's was the reason she was always awake at night. Larry was the reason for her high blood pressure. Larry was also the reason she joined many prayer ministries, jumping from Peter to Paul, in search of a solution to what was happening to her son. It was really true that the worst problem a woman could face was the problem concerning their child, whether she was looking for the fruit of the womb, or she was looking for the success of the one she had already. It was capable of making a woman enter into a secret cult. A good mother would do anything to save her child or children. The woman had paid different men of God for prayers. Some did deliverance, while some said that he had a spiritual wife. There was one that said that what was happening to Larry came from his village, that it was his kinsmen that were manipulating him, to see that his parents didn't have peace of mind. Larry's mother paid so heavily to this particular man of God. The man had to travel all the way from Lagos to the east, to do casting and binding in Larry's hometown. The man promised them that, after his magical powers, that Larry would get back to the type of son his family deserved. Larry's mother was surprised that his prayers didn't do anything. Her children begged her to stop wasting her money on fake profits, but she refused. A man whose house is on fire doesn't not pursue rats. She would always reply to her children. This problem was what Christiana solved for her without any payment. It happened like magic. Although the woman didn't live long to enjoy Christiana, they were very good friends before her death. Christiana gave birth to a beautiful baby girl 9 months after her marriage with Larry. They named the girl Mirabelle. Mirabelle was their all, and all until little Lillian came into the picture. Christiana and Larry loved their children with all their heart. They promised to give them the best thing life could offer. It was after the birth of little Lillian that Christiana told Larry that she would love to open her own school. She had taught many years in the city, and all the parents loved her teachings. She was the best when it comes to mathematics. Her students had won many scholarships, both local and international. With Larry's support, Christiana opened one of the best schools in the city. Children from all around the city trooped to the school. She named the school Heroes and Heroines Primary and Nursery School. The name was also one of the things that attracted many parents to the school. All parents wanted their children to be heroes and heroines. The process of opening that school had taken a lot from Christiana, but the end product gave her massive joy. She had borrowed from many people, went to bed on an empty stomach to see the school come to life. She had prayed and fasted with Larry just because of the school. No one remembered her those times she was suffering. No one optioned to help her build the school. But the moment the school started booming, people began to ask her where she had got her power from. Owners of schools trooped to her school to ask her about the medicine man that did the charm for her. Christiana would always tell them that she wasn't using any charm, that it was because of her many years into the job that made people come to her. She gave them examples of parents that brought their kids to her school. Some of them were also her students. She had taught them when they were kids, and that was why they also brought their children to her. Those people would always grumble and leave. They didn't believe her. They didn't believe that it was only her experience that was doing the work for her. But even in their doubting time, they knew that Christiana had her onions, that she knew what she was doing more than any of them. One day Christiana slept at night and woke up in the morning feeling very weak. They thought it was because of too much stress. That was the first time Larry raised his voice at her. He had always advised her to take things slowly, but Christiana never listened. She was like a mother to all the children in her school. She was always the one that taught mathematics in all the classes. None of her teachers had what she wanted, so she took all the classes, handling them as if it wasn't heavy. All she wanted was best for her children, like she called all the students in her school. Christiana spent many months in the hospital, all the nurses and doctors taking care of her at the general hospital were her students. They all promised to take care of her. Larry consulted different kinds of men of God. They prayed and prayed, but Christian's health kept deteriorating. Every day they would have a blood transfusion. Many people donated blood for free without even begging them. All the nurses and doctors whose blood type was the same as hers donated without demanding for anything. Christiana was happy that she had such lovely people around her. She was happy that people loved her. Christiana jerked up from bed one afternoon sweating. She narrated an awfully dream that terrified her people. She said that she saw herself going to where she didn't know. While she was on that lonely path, she met many children from her school. It was those children that asked her to go back. According to Christiana, those children cut sticks from one near a bush and started pursuing her. And the next thing she remembered was jerking off from the bed. Although her dream was terrifying, people said that the dream meant that she would be better soon, that nothing bad was going to happen to her again. Weeks later, when people thought that everything was okay, the Iroko tree was uprooted with the taproot. The building of the general hospital nearly collapsed on the day she joined her ancestors. All the nurses and doctors cried as if they had never seen a dead person before. Larry rolled on the hospital floor like a baby. The whole hospital was in chaos on that day. Larry didn't believe that Christiana was dead until the day they laid her on earth to rest. Years later, Larry began to search for another woman who could be a mother to her 2 daughters and also give her a son. According to the tradition in Larry's tribe, a man without a son was useless. People told Larry that he would never see a woman like Christiana. Even without being told, Larry knew she wouldn't see anyone like Christiana. Christiana was different. She was a virtuous woman, a typical woman in the Bible. Larry thought that Victoria would be better than others, but she wasn't. Victoria hated his children with passion. A vibrant Larry had become emasculated in front of Victoria. Before he said one, Victoria had already said 20. His siblings had complained on the way Victoria was treating his children. One of his siblings wanted to take little Lillian, but Victoria refused vehemently. "She is taking care of my daughter," Victoria said angrily. Larry told his siblings to leave little Lillian for him, that he would take care of the girl. But right now he has failed. He had failed everyone who believed in him. Larry had failed the living and the dead. Honey, please come. Little Lillian is not opening her eyes," Victoria screamed and unbolted the door. Larry sprang up from the floor and forcefully entered the room. He grabbed his daughter and rushed to the car. Victoria wanted to enter, but Larry pushed her away. "Pray that nothing happens to my daughter," he said, and shut the car door. Little Lillian was supported with oxygen. All her uncles and aunts came to the hospital. They cursed Larry and Victoria. They blamed Larry for everything. Larry's siblings named him effeminate. A man who couldn't manage his home was nothing but a woman, a vegetable. Victoria tried to see little Lillian, but Larry's siblings forbade her. She cried her eyes out and blamed hot temper and devil for her actions. She blamed all her village people and her ancestors. Finally, little Lillian woke up after about 5 days. She was happy to be surrounded by her relatives. Her elder sister Mirabelle was also there. Mirabelle hugged her little sister so tight. She had thought she had lost her to the cold hands of death. When the human rights activist got involved in the case, Victoria, knowing fully well that the obvious was transparent, still lied that she didn't do anything to the girl, that she had only whipped her small like a mother. One of the activists went to little Lillian and asked, "What exactly did she do to you?" "All I know is that I have suffered. I saw death with my own eyes and smelled it. No, I have tasted it. I am alive only because of God." Everyone in the place wept bitterly. Imagine a little girl of 8 years old talking about death. They couldn't believe what they had just heard. One of them made a promise to Victoria at that moment that she would suffer for everything, for all the trauma and pains she made little Lillian go through. It wasn't an easy thing. Little Lillian was bedridden for months. The pain and injury was much. Larry cried every day for the damages Victoria caused his daughter. He blamed himself for giving Victoria a hand that enabled her maltreat his children like slaves. His siblings cursed him 24 hours of the day. They said that he was supposed to face the same punishment like Victoria. Victoria received the punishment she deserved. She was arrested for maltreating the little girl that was left under her care. Later, she was sent to 25 years imprisonment for attempted murder. Larry was given the custody of Angel, the only child Victoria had for him. Victoria's life in prison was a total mess up. During her days in prison, she suffered so well. The warders told the other inmates what she committed, and she was hated by all inmates. Even those that killed people with guns told her that her crime was outrageous. They all despised her. She knew she had no friends both inside the prison and outside. She suffered a lot both in the hands of warders and prisoners. Food in the Nigerian prisons was a mess. Most prisoners rely on visitors' foods to survive. But in her own case, none of her families visited her. And when any charity organization brought something for the prisoners, Victoria was never allowed to take her own share. They frustrated her life like hell. It was inside the prison, through one of her inmates, that she heard that her only child, Angel, was married and had traveled to the U.S. with her husband. Victoria wept bitterly on that day. She recalled the kind of life she had planned to live with her daughter, the way she pampered her and cuddled her when she was born. All those beautiful moments were gone because of her bad attitude. Everything she did was because of her child. She was only trying to make ways for her. Little Lillian had also gotten married to a doctor and had given birth to 2 children. It was through little Lillian that Angel met her husband. They all lived outside the state. Victoria missed all the good moments in her family. The most painful part of the whole thing was that Angel never came to see her. Perhaps they told her that her mother was dead. Victoria said to herself one day. Mirabelle was also married to a good businessman. She didn't travel outside the country because she was the one in charge of her mother's school, heroes and heroines, nursery and primary school. She was a carbon copy of her mother, Christiana. She managed and handled the school with great enthusiasm and dedication. The school continued to grow beyond people's expectations. Larry was forced to get married after all his girls entered university. "You need a woman by your side," his daughters said to him. At first he said no, but his girls insisted that he needed a woman that would take care of him. After so much back and forth, Larry got married to a lady called Catherine. And to the glory of God, his wife was a perfect woman. She treated his girls like daughters, and they treated her like a mother. His family turned out to be a beautiful family. One day Larry was inside the sitting room with his wife when his phone rang. Sluggishly he picked the call and placed the phone beside his ear. "Victoria is dead. We found her dead today," the voice from the other end said. Larry's face turned pale immediately. "What's it, honey?" Larry's wife asked, placing her hand on his shoulder. "I just received a call that Victoria is dead," Larry said and breathed out heavily. "That serves her right. The wages of sin is death," Larry's wife said and rolled her eyes. "And indeed the wages of sin is dead. There's no peace for the wicked." Hello champions, I hope you enjoyed the stories. Please leave a comment below and subscribe to my channel.